My fiancée spent the money I saved for our wedding on a secret bribe to get her brother out of jail. When I found out, she yelled, "Family comes first." But her brother showed up and told me she Thr-atened to expose me if I didn't go along with it. That's when everything unraveled. I never thought I'd be the guy to get blindsided by the person I trusted the most. But then again, I never thought I'd be standing in my kitchen, staring at my fiancée like she was a complete stranger. "Where is it, Sophia?" My voice came out tighter than I wanted it to, but I was barely keeping myself together. She was standing by the sink, arms crossed, looking at me like I was the unreasonable one. "I told you, Alejandro. I had to use it." A cold feeling spread through my chest. "Had to use what?" "You know what?" she snapped. My stomach twisted. "The wedding fund." Silence. A long, dragging silence that stretched between us like a canyon, filled with all the things she didn't want to say. I let out a slow breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sophia, we had nearly $30,000 saved. Tell me you didn't touch it." She looked away. That was all the answer I needed. "Jesus Christ," I muttered, running a hand through my hair. "Where the HLL did it go?" She turned back, shoulders squared like she was getting ready for a fight. "I needed it for something important." I took a step closer. "Important like what?" Her jaw tightened. "Mateo." My blood turned to ice. Mateo, her brother. The one who had been sitting in county jail for the last 3 months on drug charges. The same brother she swore she wasn't going to help anymore because he had to learn his lesson. "Tell me you're joking," I said slowly, barely recognizing my own voice. She lifted her chin. "I had to do it, Alejandro. He's family." I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. "So that's it? No discussion? No warning? You just stole our money and handed it over to whatever scumbag you paid off?" "It wasn't like that," she snapped, stepping forward. "It was the only way to get him out." I scoffed. "You do realize people serve time for a reason, right? Mateo got caught with drugs. That's his fault, not ours." Her eyes burned with anger. "I couldn't just sit back and let him rot in there. I did what I had to do." I clenched my jaw. "With our wedding money? Sophia?" Without even talking to me. She folded her arms across her chest. "I knew you'd say no. Damn right I would have." My voice rose despite myself. "That money was for us. For our life together. And you just threw it away like it was nothing." "I didn't throw it away," she shouted back. "I saved my brother." I stared at her, my heart hammering in my chest. "And what about me, Sophia?" I asked, my voice quieter now. "What about us?" Her face hardened. "Family comes first." Something in me cracked. I laughed. A hollow, bitter laugh that didn't even sound like me. "Right. Your family comes first." She let out an exasperated sigh. "You don't get it, Alejandro. If you had a sibling, you'd understand." I asked in a slow breath, staring at her like I was seeing her for the first time. "So, because I don't have a brother or sister, my feelings don't count? That's what you're saying?" She didn't answer. The front door opened. We both turned, and there he was. Mateo. He looked different than the last time I'd seen him. Thinner, more exhausted. His dark hair was a mess, and his clothes were wrinkled like he'd been through HLL and back. He closed the door behind him and stood there for a second, eyes flicking between me and Sophia. Then, he exhaled and said the words that changed everything. She Thr-atened to expose me if I didn't go along with it. Silence. A thick, suffocating silence that pressed down on me like a weight. "What?" I finally said. Mateo shifted uncomfortably, rubbing the back of his neck. "I told her not to do it. I told her I'd serve my time. But she..." He glanced at Sophia, his expression dark. "She said if I didn't take the bribe, she'd go to the cops with something worse." Sophia's face drained of color. "Mateo, shut up." I turned to her, my pulse hammering in my ears. "Something worse?" My voice came out eerily calm. Mateo hesitated, glancing between us. "There was more to my arrest," he muttered. "What the HLL does that mean?" He swallowed hard, like he didn't want to say it. "It wasn't just drugs. There was an accident." I felt something sharp twist in my gut. "What kind of accident?" His jaw tightened. "A girl OD'd in my car." The world tilted. I stared at him, my throat dry. "What?" Mateo exhaled. "She was high, unconscious." I panicked. "I left her there." The words hit me like a fist. "You left her?" I said, barely able to believe what I was hearing. He nodded, guilt flickering in his eyes. "Yeah, and Sophia found out. She said if I didn't take the bribe, she'd tell the cops I drug her myself." My entire body went numb. I turned to Sophia. "Tell me he's lying." Her lips parted, but no words came out. That silence was the answer. My stomach turned. "Oh my God." Sophia took a step toward me. "Alejandro, please." I stepped back, my hands shaking. "You blackmailed your own brother?" My voice came out raw. "You stole from me, lied to me, and then Thr-atened your own blood to cover up something this big?" Her eyes burned with desperation. I did what I had to do. Mateo let out a bitter laugh. That's her favorite line, isn't it? I turned to him. And you? You still let her bribe you out? Why the HLL did you even come here? His expression darkened. Because I wanted to warn you. He met my eyes. You're about to marry a woman who would sell out her own brother to save herself. What do you think she'd do to you when the time comes? The words slammed into me like a punch to the gut. I looked at Sophia, really looked at her, not as the woman I loved, not as the woman I was about to marry, but as a woman who would do anything to protect herself, no matter the cost. A woman who didn't care who she hurt, as long as she got what she wanted. And just like that, everything between us shattered. Sophia took another step forward, her hands shaking, her face twisted in something between anger and desperation. Alejandro, you don't understand. I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. I don't understand? That's the best you've got. I turned to Mateo, who was still standing by the door like he wasn't sure if he should stay or run. Tell me, Mateo, what exactly did she threaten you with? Mateo hesitated, his jaw clenching. She found out there was security footage. A sick feeling crept up my spine. Footage of what? The parking lot, he muttered, his voice low. The night I left the girl in my car, I didn't realize there were cameras. The cops never saw the footage, but Sophia found out. She said if I didn't take the money and keep my mouth shut, she'd make sure they did. I turned back to Sophia, my entire body tense. You held evidence over your own brother's head to get what you wanted? She exhaled sharply. I did what was necessary. You're unbelievable, I muttered, stepping away from her like she was something toxic. Her voice rose. You're acting like I had a choice. Do you know what would have happened if Mateo had gone to prison for manslaughter? My mother would have never survived it. He would have been locked away for years. And for what? A mistake. I shook my head in disbelief. A mistake? He left a girl to die. Sophia. Mateo flinched, but I didn't care. She threw her hands in the air. And what was I supposed to do? Let them pin an M. Ryder charge on him. If he did something criminal, he should have faced the consequences. I shot back. That's how the world works. Her eyes burned with fury. Maybe in your world, Alejandro. But in mine, family means everything. I couldn't let them take him away. And what about me? I demanded. Where do I fit into this little equation of yours? Because it sure as HLL seems like I was just your bank account. She gasped like I'd slapped her. That's not fair. I let out another bitter laugh. Not fair? You stole our wedding money behind my back. You blackmailed your own brother. You. I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. I don't even know who you are anymore. She reached for me, her eyes desperate. I did it for us, Alejandro. I stepped back. No, you did it for yourself. Mateo cleared his throat awkwardly. Look, man, I didn't come here to make things worse. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I looked at him, really looked at him. He still had that same reckless energy, that same edge to him that I had never trusted. But right now, he was the only one telling me the truth. Sophia turned to him, her voice low and threatening. You had no right to come here. Mateo scoffed. Right, because your lies were so well hidden. Her fist clenched. I was trying to protect you. Protect me? He let out a hollow laugh. You Thr-atened to throw me under the bus if I didn't do what you wanted. She turned back to me, her eyes pleading now. Alejandro, please. We can fix this. We can still get married. We'll figure something out. I shook my head. How do you even fix something like this, Sophia? Her eyes filled with tears, and for a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then she whispered, You love me. My chest tightened. I had loved her. I had imagined a whole life with her. A future. A home. Kids. But now, I didn't even recognize the woman standing in front of me. And the worst part was, I wasn't sure if I ever really had. Sophia's words hung in the air between us, heavy and desperate. You love me. She wasn't wrong. I had loved her. Maybe a part of me still did. But love wasn't supposed to feel like this. It wasn't supposed to be built on lies, manipulation, and betrayal. I could see the panic creeping into her eyes as I stayed silent, as she realized I wasn't rushing to reassure her, to tell her that yes, of course, I still loved her and we could figure this out. Alejandro, she whispered, reaching for my arm. Baby, please. I stepped back out of her reach. Her face crumpled like I had physically struck her, but I couldn't bring myself to care. Don't, I said, my voice rough. Just don't. Her eyes flickered with something sharp, hurt, frustration, maybe even rage. And then, just like that, the tears in her eyes dried up. She squared her shoulders, her expression twisting into something colder. You're making a mistake, she said, her voice suddenly steady. You think you're being righteous, but you don't know what it's like to be in my position. You don't know what it's like to have a family to protect. I exhaled sharply, rubbing my face. For the last time, Sophia, this isn't about family. This is about you lying to me stealing from me, and threatening your own brother. I turned to Mateo. And you? You were just going to let this all slide? Mateo let out a bitter laugh. What was I supposed to do, man? She backed me into a corner. You think I wanted to take her damn bribe? You think I want to be here? He gestured around the apartment. I came because I couldn't keep my mouth shut anymore. I couldn't let her keep getting away with this. Sophia spun toward him, her eyes flashing with fury. You are such a coward, she spat. He laughed humorlessly. Right, I'm the coward. You're the one who blackmailed me. You deserved it, she snapped. You would have let them lock you up like an idiot. You think he cares about what happens to you? She turned back to me, jabbing a finger in my direction. You think Alejandro gives a damn about what happens to our family? I clenched my jaw. You're really going to stand there and act like I'm a villain? You stole from me, Sophia. You used me. She crossed her arms. So what? You're going to call off the wedding now? Just like that. I stared at her, my chest tight. You don't get it, do you? I said, shaking my head. It's not about the wedding. It's not about the money. It's about the fact that I don't know who the HLL you are anymore. She flinched, but quickly masked it with anger. You're overreacting. You're being dramatic. Dramatic? I let out a short, humorless laugh. I just found out my fiancée blackmailed her own brother and drained our wedding fund for a bribe. That's not dramatic, Sophia. That's called waking the HLL up. For a moment, she just stared at me, her breathing heavy. Then, slowly, she turned toward Mateo, narrowing her eyes. This is your fault, she hissed. Mateo raised an eyebrow. Oh, so now it's my fault? You should have kept your mouth shut, she seethed. We had a plan, Mateo. Everything was under control until you came here and, under control, I cut in, my voice rising. Are you actually hearing yourself right now? You've been lying to me for weeks. You stole from me. And now that your plan is falling apart, you're blaming him? Mateo scoffed. Don't get me wrong. I made some messed up choices, but at least I own up to them. Unlike you. Sophia whipped back toward me. And what about you, huh? You're really going to throw everything away because of one mistake? I let out a slow, exhausted breath. Sophia, this wasn't one mistake. I met her eyes. This was a choice. A series of choices. Every step of the way, you had chances to come clean, and you didn't. You didn't even hesitate. For the first time since this whole thing started, she looked uncertain. Do you know what hurts the most? My voice was quieter now, but it cut through the tension in the room like a cayenne fay. It's not just the money. It's not just the lies. I swallowed hard. It's the fact that you never once thought about me. About what this would do to us. Sophia opened her mouth like she wanted to argue, but no words came out. Mateo shifted uncomfortably. Look, man, I should go. This is between you two. I barely acknowledged him. My eyes were locked on Sophia's, and I could see the storm brewing behind them. Tell me the truth, I said, my voice steady. If I hadn't found out, if Mateo hadn't told me, were you ever going to tell me what you did? Her lips parted. Then, slowly, she shut her mouth. And right then, I knew the answer. A heavy silence fell over the room, and for the first time in the 5 years I had known Sophia, I felt like I was standing in front of a stranger. She had no excuse, no justification, no defense, just silence. And silence, I realized, was the loudest answer she could have given me. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. Sophia's face was frozen, like she was still searching for some way out of this, some excuse that would magically make everything okay. But there was nothing, and we both knew it. Mateo cleared his throat. Yeah, I'm definitely going to head out now. He glanced at me, his expression unreadable. Good luck, man. I barely acknowledged him as he walked out the door, shutting it behind him. The second he was gone, Sophia exhaled sharply, her hands balling into fists. You had no right to talk to him behind my back, she snapped. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. You really think that's the issue right now? You don't understand, Alejandro, she shouted, her voice shaking. I did what I had to do. I wasn't going to let Mateo ruin his life over some stupid mistake. Stop calling it a mistake. I shot back. This wasn't some accident, Sophia. You bribed someone. You blackmailed your own brother. You stole from me. And you want me to just forgive that? She folded her arms tightly over her chest, her lips pressing into a thin line. Yes. I blinked. What? You love me, she said firmly, as if that was supposed to be enough. We were supposed to get married. Couples work through things. This is something we can work through. I shook my head in disbelief. You don't get it. She took a step closer. Then explain it to me. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay calm. I don't trust you anymore, Sophia. And without trust, what do we even have? She flinched, just for a second, before her expression hardened again. You're acting like I CH'd on you, or something. I exhaled slowly, running a hand through my hair. Honestly, I don't even know if that would have been worse. Her face twisted in anger. Are you serious? Yes, I'm serious. I shot back. You didn't just betray me, Sophia. You betrayed us. You betrayed our future. She let out a sharp laugh, shaking her head. You're acting like I K-led someone. You helped cover it up. I shouted. That shut her up. For a long moment, she just stood there, breathing hard. Then, slowly, she swallowed, her gaze darting to the side. So what now? She muttered, her voice quieter. I stared at her, at the woman I thought I knew, the woman I had once imagined spending my entire life with. And for the first time, I had no idea what to say. Because after everything, I wasn't sure if we could come back from this. Sophia watched me carefully, her arms still crossed, her breathing uneven. She looked like she was trying to keep it together, but I could see the cracks forming, the way her fingers trembled slightly against her sleeves. I didn't know if she was scared of losing me, or just scared of losing control. I ran a hand over my face, my pulse still hammering. I don't even know what to say to you right now. Her jaw tightened. Say that you're not giving up on us. I let out a short, bitter laugh. Are you serious? After everything you've done, that's what you expect from me. She stepped closer, her dark eyes burning into mine. I expect you to fight for us, Alejandro. You always said you would. I stared at her, feeling something cold and sharp twist in my chest. I said I'd fight for us. Not for this. Not for a relationship built on lies and manipulation. She flinched like I had hit her, but I didn't care. You think this is manipulation? She said, her voice rising. I was protecting my family. At the cost of ours, I shot back. She exhaled sharply, shaking her head. God, you're so self-righteous sometimes. You don't get it because you've never had to make hard choices like this. I clenched my jaw. Hard choices? Sophia, you didn't just make a bad decision. You made a series of them. And every single time, you had a chance to come clean, to tell me the truth. But you didn't. Her lips pressed into a thin line. I let out a breath, trying to steady myself. Tell me something, I said, my voice quieter now. If I hadn't found out, if Mateo hadn't told me, were you ever going to tell me the truth? Her mouth opened, then shut, and there it was. The answer. She wasn't going to tell me. She was going to let me marry her, to build a life with her, all while knowing she had done this to me. I felt something deep inside me snap. Sophia must have seen it in my face, because her expression changed. The anger faded, replaced by something almost like fear. Alejandro, she whispered, reaching for me again. I took another step back. Don't, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Her hands dropped to her sides, her breath shaky. For the first time in 5 years, I could feel the distance between us stretching into something permanent. Something that couldn't be undone. She must have felt it too, because her expression hardened again. So that's it, she said bitterly. You're just walking away? After everything we've been through? I swallowed the lump in my throat. After everything you've done? I shook my head slowly. I don't know if there's anything left to save. Her face twisted with frustration. You were so dramatic. Dramatic? I laughed, but it sounded hollow. Sophia, you ruined us. And the worst part? You don't even see it. She didn't say anything. She just stared at me, her breathing shallow, her hands clenched at her sides. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I realized something. She wasn't sorry. Not really. She was just sorry she got caught. Sophia stood there, breathing hard, her face tight with frustration. But she didn't deny it. She didn't try to convince me that I was wrong, because she knew I wasn't. She wasn't sorry. And that was the moment I made my decision. I exhaled slowly, steadying myself. You know what, Sophia? I said, my voice calm now. You're right. Her eyes narrowed. About what? About me not understanding your world. About me not knowing what it's like to make the kinds of choices you make. I stepped closer, watching her carefully. Because I don't lie to the people I love. I don't manipulate them. And I sure as HLL don't steal from them. Her jaw clenched. Alejandro, I shook my head. No, I'm done. A flicker of panic flashed across her face. Wait, you betrayed me, I said, my voice firm. And now, you're going to face the consequences. Her breath hitched. What does that mean? I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled out my phone and sent the message I had drafted in my head the moment I realized who she really was. To her parents, to her extended family, to our wedding planner, to everyone who had been preparing for our big day. A simple message. There won't be a wedding. Sophia stole the wedding fund and used it to bribe someone. Asked her for details. Her phone buzzed almost instantly. Then again, and again. She scrambled to check it, her fingers trembling. Her face paled. Alejandro, what the HLL did you do? I crossed my arms. Told the truth. Something you should have done a long time ago. You. Her breath came out in a short, sharp gasp as more messages flooded in. Then her phone started ringing. Her mother's name flashed across the screen. She looked at me wild-eyed. You can't, I can, I said simply. She swallowed hard, her lips parting like she was trying to come up with something, some last excuse, some last way to manipulate me. But nothing came, because this was a checkmate. She had built her whole life around control. Controlling her family, controlling me, controlling every situation. But now, she had lost control. I picked up my keys and walked to the door. You should probably answer that, I said over my shoulder. Looks like you've got a lot of explaining to do. And then, without looking back, I walked out. I didn't need to hear her excuses anymore. I was done.